Hello, can you introduce yourselves, please?
My name is Tricia Anderson, and
I'm Allie, her daughter.
Hello, thank you for joining me tonight. Um, so Allie is the one that has CVS, and Allie, tell us how old you are.
I'm 18.
And do you know how long you've had CVS?
Since I was 2. Right? One?
your symptoms started at 1. 13 months
Wow,
was your
okay.
first hospitalization.
And when were you diagnosed?
That was 2, right?
2.5, yeah.
And do you still have CVS symptoms, or are you just one of the lucky ones that has grown out of it?
A little bit from time to time, not as often as when I was little, but.
And they're a whole lot different now. And it's great because, when you're dealing with a toddler who has it, they can't tell you what's wrong and what's going on. So you kind of have to go by what's happened before previous episodes and then, kind of still adjust to what's happening at that moment. Now she's telling us, I know when it's coming because your vision goes wonky, and she'll start to feel nauseous, and she can even kind of, once it starts setting in, she can take care of herself now.
That's always helpful.
Yeah.
Tell me when you were younger, what a typical episode looked like.
Usually a lot of vomiting.
Did you have any of the other symptoms, like people, get sensitive to noise, or light sensitive, or the abdominal pain?
You would complain about abdominal pain a lot. Headache, I've got, my tummy hurts, and we would be like, well, is it like, we would ask for it. She's like, well, it just hurts. And she also got kind of lethargic. She would just kind of slow down. And that was a big indicator, especially when she was very little, that my mother-in-law ran her own daycare, and she was there. And the one thing that my mother-in-law always told me was the other kids, 2-year-old, 1.5, 2-year-olds were running around playing. She would sit on the floor because she didn't have the energy to get up and play with them. So she would literally just sit there and watch them play around her. And it would be gradual. Like maybe for one day she could get up and play with them. By day 2, not so much. By day 3, she was sitting on the floor, and it would just be that whole 2-week thing until bam, it happened. And then she, would start all over. So, she felt horrible for her own granddaughter who couldn't even get up and play with the other kids because she just didn't have the energy.
So it sounds like she had kind of a longer prodrome phase, like before the episode, where you kind of had a little bit of a warning that she was going to be sick.
Yeah. It would just go down gradual for 2-3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I can't remember now. 3 weeks. It would just be very gradual. But you could kind of tell because she just would get less energy till she pretty much was nothing. Then bam, it would hit.
Wow, that's interesting. And how often when you were younger were you having episodes about?
I can't remember.
Before she was put on the medication to regulate it, it was every 3 weeks, like clockwork. Once she was on the medication, then it would happen less frequently. The medication helped a lot. It would happen more often if she was stressed, hot, excited. They were definitely triggers. So we couldn't tell her when we were going on vacation, or she would episode. There was one point that I took a job in a retail store as a manager. And because I was not home during the holiday season, she episoded. We went to we live in Iowa, so we're Hawkeye fans. We went to an Iowa Hawkeye basketball game. She was so excited, episoded. So, and we didn't even tell her, and we didn't think she'd care, but she episoded. So it's things like that. We just, once the medication, she was on medication regularly, it was all triggered from there.
And was she diagnosed with any like mitochondrial dysfunction along with her CVS?
Not that we're aware of, no, just the
Okay.
CVS.
Okay. I was curious.
Yeah.
If there was one CVS symptom you could get rid of, what would it be?
The vomiting.
I'd second that.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you if you had a different answer.
No, I'm good.
Sometimes moms see it a different way, right?
No, I'm good with just getting rid of the vomiting. I mean, yeah.
Sure, she would love to stop having to clean it up.
Yeah. As you're older, I don't have to do it as much. It's kind of nice. The last one is like, oh, I'm already done. You're too late.
Yep. That's a definite plus as they age.
Yeah.
What would you like people who don't understand CVS to know about living with CVS?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, a lot of, and I can't say that we ever experienced it as much, but we did, was the lack of knowledge, especially when you're in the emergency room. I mean, there is very sound knowledge out there, especially on the CVSA website and with CVSA, that explains what it is. And the countless times we were in the emergency room and they're like, oh no, we know everything. We had a neurologist, the same thing. Oh, I know everything. I followed a family. I did all this. And the entire time I'm going, no, this is not it. Why are you doing that? We ended up not seeing the neurologist anymore because we were literally, she was doing exactly opposite of what we were told needed to happen. I just think education is a great thing to educate, to get to learn about it, to actually, it'd be great if people would learn more about it. I mean, I can understand if it doesn't affect you that maybe you wouldn't, but it'd be great to even medical professionals, anybody, to just be more knowledgeable about what it is and what causes it. And
yeah, and it's so frustrating when the medical community just kind of almost throws their hands up, right? Like, we don't know what this is. We don't know how to treat it. Compared to, you think of some of these other rare conditions that, you know, have kind of gotten a name, so to speak, right? And everybody knows what they are. We're not quite there yet.
yeah, I had a bad habit of like, well, we aren't sure what to do. And I take my big old black binder, wrap it on front of them. Like, well, that binder will tell you exactly what to do because all of her documentation is in there. So yeah, it's like, I can tell you what to do. It's right here. I have a medical directive right there. Go for it.
When you brought out your black binder, did you feel like doctors were more willing to listen to what needed to happen?
Not necessarily. Sometimes they just looked at me like I was a psycho mom who had no idea. And it's like, no, you don't seem to understand. I do. I have a medical directive. I mean, yeah. And no, there were some. I would say what worked the best for me was we'd get in the ER and they'd put her on the IV and try to send her home. And my words were, call her a doctor and just call her pediatrician, because her pediatrician had it. She made sure the hospital had it. So it was literally in her hospital records, was the medical directive from Dr. Lee. And if they ever tried to ignore it, I'd say, just call her pediatrician. And they would literally call her and she would yell at them, pull out that directive and follow exactly what it says. She'd actually even say, forget it. Just don't do anything else. And she'd call a pediatrics unit and say, okay, you're getting a patient right now. They're coming directly up from the emergency room. This is what I want you to put in the IV. Start the minute she gets in there. And we would just go straight up. We even started avoiding the ER. The doctor just said, if this ever happens, call me. And I'll just put you right in the peds unit. We don't even have to go through the ER. Because she was like, we're not going to keep fighting with them. Because we did have a couple ER doctors that were like, complete experts on CVS. No, they weren't. Weren't even close.
That's great that you were able to get the direct admit. I know that's really been helpful for many people. Allie, do you remember those times? Your mom sounds like she was a great advocate for you.
I don't really remember them a lot. I think I was sleeping for most of it.
You're usually in mid-episode, so your psycho mother was off on her
own. Oh, man. Makes perfect sense. It really does.
Pays out the mom.
Yep. What would you tell a newly diagnosed patient, or even someone who thinks they have CVS, but they're kind of waiting on that diagnosis? What advice would you give them?
I'm gonna let you do that one.
Um,
Want me to jump in?
yeah,
Keep the faith.
Yeah.
Keep fighting till you get an answer. That would be what I would tell them. Because I mean, I know it's difficult. I've dealt with enough illnesses on my own. None of them have been as difficult as trying to get people to listen about CVS. None of them. It's just amazing. You know, and we've had some great doctors who immediately just jumped in and took care of it. And you know, the big one other than Dr. Ali that jumps out is Dr. Bishop, who was University of Iowa, and he was the head, he used to be, he just retired, was the head of the gastroenterology department. And I emailed him. We weren't even referred to him. I emailed him and told him about her symptoms because nobody would listen. And he's like, those are definitely symptoms of CVS and you got to bring her in. He did all of the testing and did everything. And he sat us down. He says, well, I've got good news and bad news. And we said, okay. He goes, good news is it is CVS. There's no doubt in my mind that's what it is. He goes, the bad news is I've never, I don't know of any cases that are this young at that point. And he said, so he wanted to try her on a medication, but he was sure it was going to fail. So that's when I found the CVSA website and found out about Dr. Lee. So I went back to him and said, would you be offended if we took her to Chicago? Because at that point, Dr. Lee was in Chicago. And he's like, no, I'd be honored. Tell me where to fax them. And Chicago called back and said it was the fastest they ever got records ever. They literally hung up with me and the records were coming through the fax machine same time. He says her chart now, and he's at University of Iowa, which is a major teaching college, a massive building. Her file lived on his desk. He didn't send it back down to records. Her file lived on his desk until he could figure out how to help this patient. That file was not going anywhere. So he literally took the file off his desk, handed it to his nurse, and she faxed the records immediately. So we've run into a bunch of great doctors, but we've run into also the ones that either A, don't believe you, or B, think they're the expert and they really aren't. I mean, you can tell that they've definitely not done their research. They just feel they've done it.
Yes, I think that's that's definitely a lot of people's experience. That's great, though. A great credit to that doctor at the university that that push to get Allie the help she needed. That's really spectacular.
Yeah.
You've probably talked about this a little bit with some of the other things you've said, but how do you feel like CVS impacted Allie's life and your life as a family?
Sorry, I think your brother actually hit on the biggest one.
Yeah.
Which is the one that irritates you the most?
Maybe.
The side effect from CVS that irritates you the most?
Like when I have to sit out of a sport for a little bit because I get too overheated.
That wasn't the one I was thinking of.
Which one are you?
How tall are you?
Oh yeah. So I didn't grow much because of CVS, so I'm like 4'9".
So yeah, that's been one thing. I know it's not really, what you really think about, but her growing, I mean, the ages that a child really, really grows when you're, constantly changing out clothes on, for a toddler, because they're constantly growing. We swapped them out. She, like for 3 years, wore the same thing over and over again because she never outgrew it. And in those years, she missed so much time. So now when she's walking through the halls, she's like, she goes to a school of 1,800 kids, and she's probably in the running for the smallest kid in the entire school. But yeah, there was the times that we've had to cancel vacation plans. One big time was her brothers were both very involved in track when they were in junior high and high school in the club level. And we were at state. and her middle brother was just about to run the hurdles, which he was so excited about. She was episoding. So we kind of went, well, maybe she'll just get over it and she can sleep. Maybe she's just, nope, didn't happen. So we had to pull him out, and he, which we didn't expect. I mean, he had looked so forward to doing this. We expected some kind of, him being upset, and he just went over, withdrew himself from the hurdles, and came back to the tent, packed his stuff up with the rest of the family. He was disappointed, but he knew. And so across the family, there have been things, you do have to sacrifice if something comes up that you can't do, or you can't tell anybody or plan outright with everybody about going on a trip, because you never know. Fortunately, we can do it now. She's gotten older and it's more maintained. Now we can tell her we're going to Disney and she's okay with it.
But yeah, it definitely affects the whole family, as you said. Everybody's kind of got to be on the team of knowing when it's time to go or when things are going to get canceled. So yeah, it has an impact really on everybody around you. You've talked a little bit about CVSA, which I greatly appreciate, but if CVSA helped you, how so?
They were the ones who led us there in the first place. That was so when we were trying to figure out what was going on, she would episode every 3 weeks, and her pediatrician would tell us she had the stomach flu. And finally, after about the 4th or 5th month, I was like, okay, no kid gets a stomach flu every 3 weeks. This is something's wrong. So I finally got a hold of the doctor, and I said, okay, how is this happening every 3 weeks? There's something wrong. Well, it could be anything. It could be this, it could be that, it could be cyclic vomiting syndrome. And I hit that one like a dog with a bone and ran. Got a hold of the university. I actually ended up getting forwarded to family practice, and that was a fiasco. They didn't know how to handle it. Then I got a hold of Dr. Bishop. We went through the whole thing with Dr. Bishop. It was then that I went to CVSA and found Dr. Lee. But in the meantime, when I started trying to get the research done, that's when I first originally went to CVSA and realized that, yes, those are the exact symptoms my child had, as far as I could tell. I mean, there's some listed that you just can't ask a 2-year-old, is your vision blurry? Do you have a headache and all that? But they were able to basically narrow it down for me. And then I've been able to reach out. I've made friends. I've made a bunch of friends through CVSA that we've talked about, that they've helped me through with her, and even kind of follow her as she's grown up online, Facebook. So yeah, it's been, the community's been awesome.
Agreed. The community is awesome. Yeah. And you also have done your part to help CVSA, because you wrote a book about a character with cyclic vomiting syndrome, and
I did
donated some of your proceeds to CVSA. So we're very thankful about that. Yep. And you also came to at least one Wisconsin walk, correct? I don't remember how many times you came.
We only got to one. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just couldn't remember. Tell me a little bit about your book. How did you get the idea to have a character with cyclic vomiting syndrome? I mean, obviously I know you have a daughter, but.
I got the idea. I've wanted, I guess my only dream ever had been to have somebody read what I write. And so I had written another book and had been sending it out to publishers and had not gotten any success. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll self-publish if I have to. Well, I had gotten a lead on a publishing house out of Tennessee, and I had sent it to them. And lo and behold, get the letter back, we're accepting your book and we're going to publish it. So I was so excitedly grateful, just in general, that I wanted to do something to show my gratitude. So I decided to write a book about, something that was near and dear to me. And as I thought about it, I realized I wanted people to know about CVS. I wanted people because I had talked to a few people who had symptoms like that. I had told them about CVS, and I had kind of tried to lead them in the right direction to get it checked. I wanted to make I wanted to make the world aware of what cyclic vomiting syndrome was. And so I decided, as strange as it might have seemed, I would write a romance novel about a heroine who had CVS, just like my daughter, and the complications that would come being in a relationship like that. And having a hero who was willing to go the extra mile to get her evaluated, the correct treatment, and how they were able to sustain a relationship like that. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And so now it's called Breaking the Cycle, and it's out there. Been out there for a while. It's gone through a couple rewrites. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head, actually, with showing what a relationship looks like for someone with cyclic vomiting syndrome, because it can be really, really tough to have those romantic and just other close friendships when you have CVS and you're sick all the time. So I think it's great. I read it. I remember when it first came out, and I read it, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was good. Anyway, okay, so sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love it when people tell me that.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I'm not usually a romance novel person, but I enjoyed it. If you could only use one word to describe CVS, what would it be?
Oh, you want me to start this off?
You go ahead.
Tough. It's tough.
I have to go with a little more drastic word. The author in me goes for a more drastic word. It would be hell. It's hell. But it's also, I'm seeing it from the point of view of a mom. So nothing's easy about watching your child suffer and repeatedly suffer and not be able to help them, and just do your best. But, you just kind of have to let it go. And that's just hell. I mean, purest definition, just watching them. It's tough. You're right. It's tough, but it's really hard.
I think those are both definitely great words to describe it. Is there anything else that either of you would like to share about your CVS story, or what it's like to live with it, or any other advice you have for anybody?
Well, you're not alone. I know there is a world of people. I didn't realize the world of people out there that, suffer from it or have someone they know who suffers from it. Even in the worst times, there's somebody out there who's willing to help. There's so many different message chat boards and groups on Facebook, and you're not alone. Reach out. Heck, you can message me. I kind of became an expert on it. I don't know. Do you have anything? No.
Not a very talkative person.
Very shy.